Maverick News, the antivirus program for your mind. And now, the Freedom Reporters.
Good evening, everyone. I'm Rick Walker. You're watching the Maverick News channel. Welcome, Maverick family. Great to have everybody back tonight. Appreciate everybody showing up again. James Topp should be here very soon. He's scheduled to join us. He's a busy man. It's our privilege, our honor to have him on the program again this evening as he continues phase 2 of his march across Canada. We are very excited about having him here. I'm not exactly sure when he'll arrive, but I'm sure that he'll be along very, very soon. We do have other news to share with you this evening. News about this new version of a vaccine that has been approved. Well, approved. It's being made available to Canadians. Announced yesterday in the United States. Made available by the FDA there and now by Health Canada in this country. We have a video with Canada's health minister talking about that. We'll probably get into talking a little bit more about the energy crisis, is how I would describe it, out in California, where they are asking people to not charge their electric cars because they can't generate enough electricity as this summer blankets the state in heat, which is what happens in places like California in the summer. It gets hot, but they can't generate enough power out there. They're trying to avoid blackouts. And this, of course, coming just days after they announced plans to ban the sale of all gasoline-powered vehicles by 2035. We'll talk a little bit about the batteries that go into those electric cars and why they're toxic. And I received more messages overnight from some viewers, some people that I'm not sure if they're actual viewers, regular viewers, but people critical of Elliot McDavid, the man who confronted Chrystia Freeland. At least a couple of those email messages came from people I would describe as freedom fighters who do not feel that Mr. McDavid deserves the support of the freedom movement. I messaged those people back and told them they're missing the point of what I said, over what I have been saying over the past nearly a week now, saying that Mr. McDavid should not be thrown under the bus by the freedom movement. And I'm going to explain again my perspective on this and share it with you. And then later tonight, we will go to the phones. I'm flying solo. Lori's off tonight. I'm sure she'll be back. And when she is, things will be brighter and happier. But before we get to that, I think our guest is just about to arrive. So let's just give him a moment. We'll take a very brief break. And when we come back, James Topp will join us here on the Maverick News channel. So don't go away.
Maverick News. Fighting for freedom.
We're back, and joining us live right now, there he is, James Topp. Sir, how are you this evening?
Yeah, not too bad. We have just concluded the marching for today, and we are hunkering down at a supporter's house for the evening.
That's awesome. So where exactly are you tonight, James?
Well, I'm in New Brunswick, just outside of a place called Shediac, but in the morning we'll be resuming the march going to Moncton,
Okay.
through
There were,
Moncton.
yeah, you're making very good progress, but there were a few things that I wanted to talk to you about. First of all, I noticed something, I think what might have been in my email or on your website. It said CBC on it, picture of you marching. What exactly was that? Or did they finally come to provide some coverage for you, or what is that?
No, of course not. We're actually trying to get we're actually trying to get onto the CBC
Yes,
right now. Excuse me while I negotiate the
sure.
various vehicles full of dogs. We're trying to get on the CBC. Actually, this is our the challenge that we have. As you know, the mainstream media has actually not decided to pay any attention to what I'm doing once again, unless it's in a derogatory fashion, and they continue to insinuate, innuendo, rumor monger, and character assassinate as they do. So this is one of the challenges that we're having in trying to get the organization known as the CBC to give us some time so that we can talk about why I'm doing this march. Typically, what has been happening is that we are experiencing censorship by media blackout. The CBC will not talk about what this march is about because what I am talking about is the harm being done to the Canadian Armed Forces through the implementation of this Chief of Defence Staff Directive on vaccination policy.
Right.
Unofficially speaking, I can tell you that at the individual level, for a person in the armed forces who has decided not to participate in this program, they are being forced out of the armed forces on a release item code, which is bureaucratic speak. Um, it is filing system oriented, and it is given to your release paperwork. And those folks are experiencing something called a 5F release. So what it means is that you were designated as somebody whose service is complete and you are unsuitable for further services due to circumstances in your control that you are unable to deal with, and you are no longer of any use to the Canadian Armed Forces. So the issue with this is, of course, because of the fact that the armed forces is a small unit as a whole when compared to other armed forces like the American Army. The Canadian Armed Forces cannot afford to lose trained personnel such as pilots, special forces operators, and other highly trained technicians. And this is what is happening. They are losing these personnel, and furthermore, years of exemplary service are ignored, and they are given um, this release item because they're refusing to participate. Furthermore, those who have been asking for exemptions are frequently denied. Those who receive exemptions are more or less discriminated against for all intents and purposes. Now, this is happening at different levels of intensity at different parts of the country and in different units. However, um, this is what is happening. I am telling you this as somebody who has heard it, um, and this is why we continue to march. We are addressing this issue. We are reaching out to the Canadian Forces, to the Ombudsman, the Department of National Defense Ombudsman. I myself am going to be undergoing a 5F release, um, probably after my court martial, where we can talk about that. But the reason why the CBC will not talk about this is because they will not talk about the harm that this policy has caused. They will not talk about vaccine injury. They will not talk about how Canadian Armed Forces members are being forced out. And we are encouraging people who we meet to reach out to the CBC so we can have this conversation. The Canadian public pay for the CBC. It is their broadcasting service. And we are encouraging them to reach out to their members of parliament. Once again, reach out to the CBC, reach out to the Department of National Defense Ombudsman so we can have this national conversation about what is happening to our armed forces.
It isn't just a blackout that you're facing, it's also the negative coverage that you're receiving. And I know that you are focused on global television. Can you explain what that is about?
Absolutely. Again, I was referring to the insinuation, innuendo, guilt by association, basic cognitive conditioning, if you will, of mentioning my name in a cloud of statements with other organizations and people, um, so that my name becomes associated with these other groups and people. Of course, nobody in that particular journalistic clique will actually and speak to me directly. They only ever talk to other folks and refer to me third hand. So unfortunately, this continues to happen. And because this is happening and because the latest um, article was so egregiously wrong, and furthermore, when the article was first released on Saturday, August the 18th, in the URL, it directly refers to me as somebody called a white supremacist. And the fact that this is allowed to happen in this country, um, the fact that a journalist is allowed to smear me in this way, um, and are given full license to, like I said, um, mishandle the truth, misrepresent, mischaracterizing everything I'm doing, and smear me in this way, while I do not even get a chance to speak on my own behalf. This is the level that we've sunk to in this country because we have a corporate media that is subservient to our federal government. And it is unfortunate, and I continue to fight against it and will continue to because we're going to file a lawsuit. Global has changed the URL to take out the offensive word, but that doesn't change the damage done. That URL was up for about 2 or 3 days. Furthermore, the content of the article is highly derogatory and based on, again, half truths and a number of inaccurate pieces of information. So we are going to sue, and the point of it will be to, let people see what is actually is happening here. Everything that I do is done with the purposes of bringing to the attention of people what is happening within the federal government and people who are mandated um, to participate in taking a experimental product, and if they didn't, they were told they would lose their jobs. This is what I'm doing. This has nothing to do with politics, with far-right extremism or white supremacy. These are just name-calling tactics that are used to distract people away from what is actually happening in this country.
What you're making good progress. Let's just bring people up to date on your journey now at this point because you're heading toward Ontario. What's your timeline look like?
I would say we would get into Ontario probably around October. And then what we are trying to achieve at this particular phase is, again, as you know, on June the 20th, there were some federal government workers invited back to work. Not all federal government workers were invited back to work. Furthermore, Canadian Armed Forces members continue to be forced out. Like I said, they continue to be dishonorably discharged, for lack of a better term. Um, and furthermore, there has been no speaking of restitution. There has been no talk of, a formal apology given to those workers who have lost a half a year's pay. There's been no talk of anybody addressing the fact that for if somebody in the Canadian Armed Forces who has spent 18, 19 years in, if they had been released on what's called this 5F, they are not entitled to severance pay. They are unable to complete the requisite period of time to get a pension. So again, this is about attaining justice for those folks. This is why we are reaching out to the Department of National Defense Ombudsman, who acts as a third-party neutral conflict resolution services, you will, if you will, for armed forces members who feel they've been treated unjustly. So far, he has said that their office will not address the issue because it is a government policy and that they have no control over. I disagree. I think that they do. Furthermore, we would like to reach out to any member of parliament. While we conduct this march, we continue to write letters. We reach out to members of parliament, ask for their assistance in this matter. Our Canadian Armed Forces are paid for by the people of this country. Our representatives should be doing something to make sure that that organization isn't hollowed out from the inside. So we continue to reach out to members of parliament. And furthermore, we are asking folks to do so on our behalf as well, in the same way that a lot of them did when we were marching from Vancouver to Ottawa. So we started this march again back in July the 18th in St. John's, Newfoundland. We marched across Newfoundland from St. John's to Port au Basque. Uh, we got on the ferry and came back to Nova Scotia, got over Cape Breton Island, onto the mainland Nova Scotia, crossed over into Prince Edward Island, spent 3 days there marching, and now we are in New Brunswick. So far on our feet, we have about between 5,500 and 6,000 kilometers.
So, what is the ultimate destination? Is it Toronto this time?
We would like to be invited to Ottawa. We would like to have this discussion in somebody's office of importance, like the ministers, um, the ombudsman, the chief of defense staff. I doubt that's going to happen looking at the current political landscape. Um, Having said that, we are going to go to the GTA area because we feel that there will be a significant number of Canadians in that region who will be sensitive to our needs and help us set up a meeting place. And if that happens, we'll do the same thing we did in Ottawa. We will invite officials to come and meet with us at a place in Toronto with the help of the Canadian public.
Okay.
And I will say that we will include in this trip Windsor because this will complete a kind of cross Canada journey from Vancouver to Ottawa and then St. John's into southern Ontario.
Is it helping to unite the country? It looks from your videos like you're receiving very warm welcomes from community to community.
Absolutely. I like to think so. What I find is that we have these run-ins with folks that are entirely positive. I want to add. They see us marching, they pull over, they come out, and they are thankful, they are encouraging. We have meet and greets in various communities and towns. Folks show up. We're able to explain to them exactly what we're doing and why, and it's usually a good turnout. And at a small scale, now there's a significant amount of work that has to be done. Um, at a national level to truly like repair the damage that has been done with the implementation of various mandates and policies and procedures over the last 2.5 years. What I will say is that it seems like increasingly I do see more positive interactions. I do see more participation in various meet and greets, and at the the small scale, I would say that we are making some progress in reunification, if you will.
Mhm. Just back to the media issue, is there some way the public can support you? I know there was talk about filing complaints with the Canadian Broadcast Standards Council, for instance.
Absolutely. So I did have a conversation with somebody who was very helpful at that organization, actually, and what they had said is they will typically only address complaints and weigh in as a department for those on the broadcast media, such as television and radio. However, if folks are seeing articles that are this blatantly wrong and inaccurate and slanderous, they can write a complaint in addressing global news and the author. And while they will not initiate proceedings because it is an internet article, so I would like to make that clear, because it's an internet article published on the internet. The Broadcasting Standards Council will not be able to initiate proceedings as such. However, they will contact the organization that is responsible. Um, so they can do that. However, I think what is most effective is for viewers to reach out clearly, coherently, politely, and in a fashion that is they are able to make their point without the use of too much anger or other sentiments, and get a hold of public the
Oh, we lost his connection. There he's back.
hello.
Yeah, we're back again. We just lost the
Okay.
connection.
Yeah, I believe they have more impact in reaching directly out to the broadcaster, to the media organization, um, and saying, "This is who I am. I refuse to consume your product unless you stand by some kind of journalistic standards." They can make complaints directly to the outlet, the media outlet. I think that is something that could be just as effective, if not more. Um, and then if there is something that they see broadcast that is inaccurate, untrue, they can reach out to the standards, the various CRTC or Broadcasting Standards Council. And again, this is what it's going to take for these corporate media outlets to realize that they are insulting their viewership, they're undermining their own credibility, and if they want to get that credibility back, they need to start doing some honest reporting. As of yet, apart from when I was approaching Ottawa, I have yet to hear from one person in the corporate media asking about what I'm doing and why, and then have them report on it. Instead, they sidestep the issue and file reports about the war monument and how it's being used for political purposes. It's absolutely ridiculous. They will not address why this march started in the first place. It started because federal government workers, personnel in the armed forces, police services, paramedics, firefighters, and the public service were being harmed by a policy implemented by the federal government.
In addition, that kind of slanderous reporting, I think, can fuel negative emotions, hate, and possibly even violence in some cases. Are you I would be concerned about safety, especially when you're walking down the side of the highway.
Absolutely, and I made that point clear on a video once not long after that particular article was released. Folks read these kinds of things, and we know from the reaction by some people and the way that the protests in Ottawa were portrayed in a negative and hateful way, like, as you said, and that in turn um, made villains out of those peaceful protesters, and people turned on them. And we know that from what I've seen, it is a lot less of an occurrence these days. But when there is somebody who is significantly enraged because they see us marching down the side of the highway, and they have not got accurate information, they definitely are. They putting us at risk because the act of driving a car can cause an irrational state of mind, sometimes, as we know, and folks who read these articles and are enraged by it are further fueled by two things. They have a negative stereotype already in their mind because of the portrayal being put out there by the mainstream media, and then they're driving a car. So this definitely is something we take into consideration. We have increased our level of safety in several different ways with the use of high visibility vests with the safety vehicle. and we try to stay to the extreme edges of the highway as we possibly can. Um, but absolutely, this is a concern. And furthermore, what has been happening is because we are so badly represented by not just the mainstream media, by organizations such as Anti-Hate. The Canadian Anti-Hate Network feels like they need to weigh in on who I am and what I'm doing in a negative fashion as well by guilt by association articles. And so this further fuels this kind of negative stereotype. And they are doing the exact same thing to me, what they are proclaiming to be fighting against, which is ironic to say the least. So, what has been happening with that organization is that members who belong to Anti Hate or the other organization known as Antifa are calling local venues and telling them not to do business with us when we try to book a facility. It's quite concerning in that we have these organizations now acting as kind of a thought police, if you will. And I think that folks need to start standing up to those particular organizations as well, asking for their credentials and demanding some kind of accountability and journalistic integrity.
And that would include the Canadian Legion, right?
Unfortunately, it seems that that organization has been told that they will not speak to me or acknowledge my presence or support me in any way. And it is unfortunate because not only am I a veteran, I am still serving in the reserves until such time as I am 5F released. And what they have chosen to do is ignore what I'm doing. And when we have reached out to them to use one of their facilities, they have completely blocked us out and then advertised it. Um, this, of course, is due to again either a direct pressure from higher levels of the federal government and more than likely leadership in that organization reading these types of articles and coming to the wrong conclusions.
Well, back to a little positivity, I guess. How can people support you? Because I know that I think the majority of people, when they see you, when they hear what you're doing, they're absolutely behind you, and you're bringing hope to people. How can people? What do you need? I guess is the question.
Absolutely. Just to touch on that a little bit, just because of the nature of the online world, it is a different reality. And that reality is affected by those folks who inhabit that reality. And a lot of them, I should say, live in a negative space, but a majority of them don't. We typically get nothing but positive comments for the most part. On the ground, it is completely different. When I interact with people on a daily basis, when we have meet and greets, it is 100% positive. We had not have any negative interaction at all. Even folks who come by and they don't actually know what I am, um, or what I'm doing, once it is explained to them, they are generally supportive. So it's good that you brought that up. The I am quite privileged in a way, despite the physical and psychological strain at times, to be able to do something like this and meet this variety of people. And they are supporting us, and they can support us by going to CanadaMarches.ca. We have a donation page there. You can buy merchandise, you can direct donate, or you can come to one of our meet and greets. We typically try to make it a information session with a little bit of entertainment in empowering them with what they need to know to be, an effective citizen, informing them of their human rights as voters, as taxpayers, and as consumers. So we try to do a little bit of all there, and they get a chance to meet me. They get a chance to meet the rest of the team, most importantly, because it's the rest of the team that got me here. And we are going to be setting up a Give Send Go shortly because we do plan on pursuing litigation with regards to these kind of articles coming out. They are we have evidence in the one case where it has been captured, the screenshot, a URL with this kind of name calling that is directly defamatory. We're going to pursue litigation on that. We're going to end up having to get funding for legal fees and to continue the march into Ontario. So that's going to be something we're going to be setting up shortly.
Okay. James, I know it's been a long day. Every day is a long day, so we're not going to keep you. Is there anything else you'd like to add or think that we might be missing?
Yeah, no, I do want to say thank you, despite the the negative aspects of this online campaign by the folks who have the most um, real estate on the internet and who have the most power to warp people's minds. Despite that, I do see a lot of folks, who are kind of aware of what is happening in that space. They are supportive. I am thankful to them in every way, shape, or form, to everybody who stops and encourages us and has been generous with us and allowed us to stay in their homes so that we can save on funds. We're not being paid. This is driven by the Canadian public this March, and they have supported us in almost every way possible. So I do want to say thank you to everybody who has accepted what I'm doing, has been positive and been encouraging, and I thank everybody for that.
Okay, sir. We're always here. This platform is always available to you. The work you're doing is extremely important, vital, and we appreciate everything you're doing, and we thank you.
Thank you.
Okay, we'll chat again, and we'll pick you up, and
Looking forward to it.
we'll see you down the road. Thank you, sir.
Thank you.
James Topp, everybody. Go to canadamarches.ca to support him, buy his merchandise, make donations. Let's keep James on the road as he makes his way back toward Ontario, completing phase 2 of his march across Canada to support veterans, to support armed forces personnel who are losing their jobs because of the mandates, to support the Canadian public, to unite Canada, to give Canadians hope, which he has been doing, to support his legal challenge against the media, which will send a clear message to the mainstream media that truth is important and that journalism should embrace truth and objectivity where possible. True journalism. It's strange times, but James Topp, a true Canadian hero, a leader, a true leader, someone that we can all follow to a better place. And I'm excited to see him arrive back in Ontario. We will be covering him, providing coverage again, as we did when he arrived in Ottawa. We'll find a way to get the live streams rolling on here so that truth can be seen, so that the mainstream media can't spin the story, can't distort things in a negative way. We'll keep everyone honest by showing exactly what happens with those live streams as they come in. That's what we did in Ottawa. That's what we'll do again, as long as we can make all the arrangements, and that's our plan. So that the truth will prevail. And I have to say, thank you, James Topp, for fighting for freedom in a positive, constructive way. We'll be right back after this, and then we're going to get into the new vaccine, the upgraded, new and improved super duper vaccine that has now been rolled out not just by the FDA in the United States, but also Health Canada. Do not go away. There's more right after this.
Fighting the Great Reset by leading the Great Resistance. Maverick News. The antivirus programs for your mind.
The New World Order. Government overreach. The Great Reset. Mainstream media lies. Now more than ever, independent voices are needed. Donate now at freedomreporters.com. That's freedomreporters.com. Maverick News. The antivirus program for your mind.
I'm back, and you can donate at freedomreporters.com. We could use your help as well so that we can provide the coverage for Mr. Topp, so we can do other things here as well. I have to find a way to make this thing work, and that is going to take some money. We need help around here, honestly, a little bit. It would be nice to keep Lori around if we could. And she's spoken about her situation. I won't speak for her, but she has mentioned it here on the program. We need to find a way to make things work here. You can support this channel to keep the lights on, give us the tools we need to provide a proper broadcast every night at freedomreporters.com. That takes you right to the donation page. And it does work, and it is PayPal, but we have not had any trouble with PayPal. I know some people don't particularly care for it, but we've had no issues with it, and I'm always careful about how we utilize it so that the money does not get stuck in there. Whatever money might be in there at any given time, not that there's, we're not getting rich around here, but it would be nice to cover the bills. We'll be going to the phone lines later in the program. That system, for instance, costs money. There's a fee to run that. We need that so that we can at least provide a certain level of automated screening for the callers that come in. So it puts them into a queue. There's a toll-free number. There are costs associated with running that. And I have to dump money into it to keep it up and running. And then there's a per minute fee, just to let you know. It costs money to run this whole operation. Not that we're as big as a major network like ABC, CTV, or Fox News, or Global, or any of those government-funded operations in Canada. We are only here because of what you guys support us with. It's just that simple. You want us on the air? It's up to you. You want us to continue to do the work? It's up to you. I'm doing everything I can. I'm going to be here regardless. But I need other people. I can't be on the road and shoot stuff and live stream James coming into the community and be in the studio and do video production and do all the other daily stuff. We need people in the field too. We need bandwidth. We need data. We need to cover those charges. Anyway, enough of the begging. Just being honest. It's the way it goes here. So we appreciate the support we have had from everybody. And I'm running constantly from the time I get up in the morning until the time I go to bed at night. It's just nonstop. There's a lot more that goes into this than just sitting in front of this microphone and camera every night for 3 or 4 hours. It takes a lot of prep time, and I need to know what's going on all the time and familiarize myself with what's happening. And I appreciate all the people who are sending me links and information and tips on stories. It helps. It really does. It helps to kind of narrow things down and focus my attention on some of those stories that are important, or sometimes things that I'm not aware of. So I do appreciate that help when people send me information on stories, and they're just some key people that have been doing that. Gina, thank you very much for your help with that. It's been outstanding. She sends me links every day to very relevant stories, some of which does make it onto the program here. And there's some information she shared with me today that we're going to talk about a little later in the program. Right now, though, what we're going to do is we're going to talk about this new vaccine that has come online, this new COVID-19 booster. Canada's health minister says it should top Canadians' fall to-do list. Aren't we? Oh, I'm so excited. Health Minister Jean-Yves Duclos says Canada is lagging behind other countries when it comes to booster dose uptake. And he's asking everybody to run out and get it in the arm. Get your third dose, he says, because he says this fall may be challenging. And he says over the next weeks, as our children return to school or when we return to the office, making an appointment, he says, for a booster dose should be at the top of our to-do lists. So Health Canada has announced the authorization of the first variant targeting COVID-19 booster. 780,000 doses will arrive, I believe, tomorrow. And more than 10 million should arrive and will be available to people by the end of September. The question, I guess, is how many people will do it again? How many people will go for their third or fourth, in some cases even fifth shot? He says, the health minister says less than 60% of adult Canadians have received a third dose, putting Canada behind all other G7 countries except the United States. Maybe the Canadian public is trying to send a message back to Health Canada and the Minister of Health. According to the Public Health Agency of Canada, 49.5% of the total population have received their primary series as well as at least one additional dose. Only 12.4% of the population have received a primary series as well as 2 additional doses. So the health minister is comparing vaccination to a phone battery. Sounds very scientific. He says both need to be recharged. It's interesting. When the vaccines were first introduced, they never said a word about needing booster shots. They were supposed to be like 95 to 97% effective, zero risk, we were told. Absolutely no risk of any side effects whatsoever. And 95 to 97% effective. And that was supposed to be with the first shot. The second one was just to make sure. I did come across some information today that was very contradictory. It was conveying a very different story than what is being conveyed here by Health Canada today. I can't get into that information here on YouTube, Facebook, Twitter. I can only say that I don't think there's true consensus at this point. And there certainly doesn't seem to be consensus on what the Ontario government is doing with their approach to isolation and health guidance on this issue anymore, saying that people who test positive can still go to work or school as long as they wear masks. Some concerns about that. And Canada's top medical officer, Theresa Tam, addressed that in today's news conference, where the health minister was also involved and provided information on this new bivalent COVID-19 vaccine, we'll cue this up and let the health minister speak for himself for a moment, just to give you a sense of what was said today during the announcement. So this is Canada's health minister.
Let me repeat this in English. This morning, Health Canada authorized the use of the Moderna bivalent COVID-19 vaccine as a booster dose in adults aged 18 years or over. A bivalent vaccine is one that targets two different strains of a virus. The vaccine authorized today targets both the original strain of COVID-19 and the Omicron strain. It is the first bivalent COVID-19 vaccine to be authorized for use in Canada. As we also heard this morning, the National Advisory Committee on Immunization, also known as NACI, continues to recommend a booster this fall. Where possible, for those 18 or older, that dose should be a bivalent booster that targets Omicron, like the one that has been authorized today. This being said, all vaccines approved until now continue to remain safe and effective. In addition, 780,000 doses of that new bivalent vaccine will be delivered to Canada tomorrow. A total of 10.5 million doses will be delivered by the end of September. As usual, these vaccines will be delivered quickly and free of charge to provinces and territories. Let me also speak about the importance of this fall's vaccination campaign. This fall will be challenging with the return of the flu and other respiratory diseases and people moving indoor. Canada has been ahead of all other G7 countries and most other countries in the world in terms of two-dose vaccination. 90% of all adults in Canada have received two doses, but only 60% of adult Canadians have received a third dose, putting us behind all other G7 countries except for the United States. La santé publique du Canada calcule que si nous augmentons de 60 à 90% la proportion de Canadiens à jour dans leur vaccination.
So the health minister promoting this new vaccine. I'm not sure how effective this might end up being. My question at this point is what kind of variants are out there right now? This is targeting. Here we go.
Various vaccine protection is like a phone battery. It needs to be recharged from time to time. Recharging our protection after 6 months is important. Otherwise, we are left without the power to protect ourselves and our loved ones. Au cours des prochaines semaines, à mesure que nos enfants retournent à l'école ou que nous retournons nous-mêmes.
I do have to say thank you to Sage and Fool for the donation. Greatly appreciated. Yes, I remember the National Pride that came with Terry Fox's run as well across Canada. And I see a lot of similarities with what James Topp is doing. And thank you, for your donation as well. It helps more than you know.
Getting everyone caught up with their vaccination is a top priority. This is not only true for COVID-19 vaccinations, but also for routine vaccinations for all children and adults. Merci, thank you, Miigwech. And I will now turn, I believe, to Dr. Tam.
Well, let's see what the good doctor has to say.
Merci, le ministre. Bonjour à toutes et à tous. As has been mentioned, the vast majority of Canadians have received 2 doses of COVID-19 vaccine, and many adults have received a booster. However, we know that COVID-19 immunity decreases over time, and protection from a vaccine or infection that was given more than 6 months ago no longer provides optimal protection. Being up to date with your vaccine is very important. Tenir à jour ces vaccins, ce qui comprend une dose de rappel offre la meilleure protection contre la COVID-19 alors que l'automne approche à grands pas.
Only appropriate, I think, that at this point, I'll tell you that we're going to talk about the hockey player who passed away suddenly in just a moment.
Alors que les gens recommenceront à passer plus de temps à l'intérieur, nous prévoyons observer une hausse de l'activité de la COVID-19 au Canada durant les mois froids. Heureusement, nous avons mis à jour et étoffé les outils à notre disposition et une dose de rappel peut maintenant être offerte à toute personne âgée de plus de 5 ans. Canadians who have received their primary series and kept up to date with boosters have a very strong foundation of protection. The new bivalent booster, which includes the original strain of the SARS-CoV-2 virus and the BA1 subvariant of the Omicron lineage, will help build on that protection. We know that the Moderna Spikevax bivalent vaccine also generates a good immune response against the BA4 and BA5 subvariants currently circulating. If it has been 6 months or longer since your last dose or since being infected, it's time to get a booster dose. It is especially important if you're at high risk for severe illness from COVID-19. Where possible for those aged 18 years or older, that dose should be a bivalent booster that is specifically targeting Omicron. For adolescents 12 to 17 years of age at higher risk of severe outcomes for COVID-19, the booster may also be a bivalent vaccine. However, if the bivalent booster is not readily available, an original mRNA COVID-19 vaccine should be offered to ensure timely protection. Both the original and bivalent COVID-19 vaccines are effective as a booster. The simple message is having up-to-date vaccination is the key priority to restore protection that wanes over time. So the booster that is available to you is better than not being up to date with your vaccine protection. We know that involving communities and ensuring they have the credible information and tools they need to help increase vaccine uptake will be key to successful fall vaccination campaigns. The Public Health Agency of Canada will continue to support healthcare providers and community organizations, including providing funding for innovative projects to make information accessible and boost vaccine confidence. Je cède maintenant la parole à la Dr. Laura Sauvé, spécialiste des maladies infectieuses pédiatriques de la Société canadienne de pédiatrie, qui parlera de l'importance de la vaccination, en particulier au moment où les enfants retournent à l'école et font plus d'activités intérieures. Thank you. Merci. Miigwech.
Okay.
Thank you very much, Dr. Tam.
Oh, thank you, Dr.
As
Tam.
Dr. Tam mentioned, I'm a pediatric infectious disease specialist who works in British Columbia, caring for children with complicated infections. This last 2.5 years has been really challenging for many children and families. And importantly, many children have gotten behind on their regular routine vaccinations. More and more, we see things getting back to normal. And with that, unfortunately, we're going to expect to see the more common infections that we haven't seen much of over the last 2 years, like influenza, are going to be coming back and becoming more frequent again. But we've also noticed that we've seen reports about cases of polio in countries that haven't seen polio for many years.
Interesting.
This reminds us that for all vaccine preventable diseases, they can come back if we don't stay on top of our regular routine immunizations.
Why would we be seeing more
preventing
polio
infections
now?
and keeping
Can't
children
imagine
healthy
why.
in the first place than treating infections that have happened. While we can't protect children against every single infection that's out there, by making sure that kids are up to date with their routine vaccines, we can prevent many of the most common and most severe infections. Immunization is one of the most important ways that we can keep children healthy. And vaccines are very safe, and there are very rarely reasons not to get vaccinated.
Oh, okay.
As many of us know, some of the most important health effects of the pandemic on children in Canada have actually been the mental health, developmental, and educational impacts. especially so for children, youth, and families who face structural and psychosocial barriers to accessing care and activities even before the pandemic. It's going to be really important as we go into the fall that in order to balance safety with maximizing connection, time in school, and time with friends and peers, that children are vaccinated, both with their regular routine vaccine,
Why?
but also with the COVID-19 vaccine. The Canadian Pediatric Society and pediatricians, family physicians, and infectious disease doctors from across the country all strongly recommend that children get caught up with all vaccines, including the COVID-19 vaccine that, of course, is now available for children from 6 months and up. Some families do have important questions about how vaccines work and how we can make sure that they are safe. And it's important, if you do have questions, to talk to a trusted healthcare provider about these questions, whether that's a family doctor, a pediatrician, a public health nurse, or another provider. They can often answer your questions really well. And I'd really like to thank the minister and Dr. Tam for having me here today to talk a little bit more about why routine vaccines as well as COVID vaccines are important. Merci beaucoup, Miigwech.
Merci à tous.
What's the value in speaking to a family doctor or any doctor these days about these vaccines when you know what that the answer is predetermined anyway? You know that the doctor has no choice but to convey the information that they've been told they have to convey. You don't get a second opinion because the doctor's not actually allowed to have an opinion. So what's the value in asking the doctor anything when the information they give you is the same information that just came out of her mouth and the mouth of Theresa Tam and the mouth of the health minister, because they're all giving you exactly the same information. Nobody's allowed to have another opinion. There's no such thing as a second opinion anymore, at least among any doctors that want to keep their licenses. So how do you know if what the doctor is saying is being conveyed to you in a sincere way? How do you know if the doctor believes what he's saying if you know that the doctor is effectively being coerced into saying what he's saying? He might believe it, it might be true, but then on the other hand, maybe he's just regurgitating the information that he was given in a brochure or in an email message or a threat from someone above him saying, if you don't toe the line, you lose your license. Under those conditions, how can you trust what your doctor says? So what's the point in even showing up? Why bother to call? You know what the information is anyway. They just gave it to you. Case closed, right? Just trust them, I guess. That's the best policy, right? Just whatever the government tells you, just go with that. I'm just asking questions. Seems a lot of people have questions about the vaccines right now. So some people are asking questions because this new vaccine that has come out seems to be different in some way. My question would be, what kind of testing has gone on? Have they gone through clinical trials? Has this been tested on humans? What are the potential side effects from this? Will they be including those side effects, possible side effects, if any, in a pamphlet that will go in the packaging this time? What other questions might I have about this new vaccine? My questions would be, if you take this vaccine, is it far enough ahead in terms of its development to actually target the current variants that are out in the public? Because we know, as a scientific fact, that flu vaccines are always kind of a shot in the dark because the flu bug always mutates. And they're always basing the flu vaccines or the flu shots on previous versions or versions of the flu that they think might emerge in the community. Sometimes they work and sometimes they don't, because the flu shots aren't always able to target the specific variant of the flu bug that they're trying to hit, because they're guessing which one is going to become prevalent in the community. And since COVID is a virus that is similar based, comes from the same family of viruses as the common cold, they've never been able to cure the common cold because it mutates so quickly and all the time. It's constantly changing. So this is just a question. I'm not stating any of this as fact. I'm just a layman asking a question. So they're still saying that you need this new version because it targets the Omicron version, which has been out in the community for how long now? So they're just getting around to giving us a version of the vaccine that targets that. The Omicron 5 and what about the the Delta variant? Does it do that one too? I don't know. It's just questions. And then she said that if you can't get the new one, just get the old one again for a good booster on that, because that one works. She says, well, if that one works, then what do we need the new one for? There's another question. So if you can't get the new one, just get the old one because it works too. And will this new vaccine, will it prevent infection? Will it prevent people from spreading the virus? Because we were told now that you can get it when you get vaccinated, and you can still spread it when you get the vaccination. So will the new one stop any of the spread? And it was supposed to be 95, 97% effect, but didn't work out that way. So now the science has changed. And Dr. Fauci is science, and he's retiring. So when he's gone, we're doomed, because there will be no science anymore, because he is science. Well, let's take a break while I digest that, and I'll let you think that over a little bit as well while we give our brain a break, so that when we come back, we can talk about this hockey player who just died suddenly. Really weird, isn't it? All these people just dying suddenly. I can't imagine why. Very, very odd. I'll give it some thought, and I'll be right back.
Hello, world. Are you awake? Uniting humankind by liberating millions of minds at a time. Maverick News. The world is watching. We are Mavericks. We say no to the Trudeau and Biden New World Order. And to bugs. Because bugs are creepy and gross. And people should not eat bugs. Maverick News. The world is watching.
Hey, no! To bugs!
And I'm sure you've all heard the news if you're living in Canada. Some of you watching in the US may have heard this as well, because I know it has made international news. It's making headlines across borders tonight. And here's just one of those headlines. This one from our state broadcaster, CBC, the mighty CBC. Tributes pour in for Eli Palfreeman, Ontario junior hockey captain, who died after collapsing at 30. Player's dad told teammates his son's happiest day was when he became captain of the Air Centennials, exec says. And the tributes are pouring in for this young man, born in 2002, passed away in 2022. His whole life was ahead of him. So he was participating in a hockey tournament, collapsed. Collapsed in the change room during the second intermission of a preseason tournament against the Boston Junior Bruins. As far as I know, at this point, they're still not giving us any information on the possible cause of death. It has shaken up the entire community, and there are a lot of questions surrounding this tonight. I don't like to jump to conclusions, but man, it's pretty clear to me that something serious has changed, because we're hearing more and more about these kinds of things. So the Peterborough Petes Junior A hockey team chose Palfreeman in the 2018 OHL priority selection draft from the Cambridge Hawks. So they were saddened to learn about his death. This is a young man who was an athlete, should have been near the peak of his physical strength at his age. I rarely have ever heard of people in their 20s just dying unless they've had some very unusual health condition. What is it? What is it that's going on? Sudden adult death syndrome we're hearing about more? Do you need to be a rocket scientist to figure this stuff out? Captain of junior hockey team in Ayr, Ontario, died suddenly at age 19. This person here, who reposted this headline from Global News, this is just a person online, says, I can't keep up with all of the died suddenly deaths. Healthy 19-year-olds just dying suddenly. Where is the science? Yeah. Gee, can't imagine what it might be. Oh, look at that. Yeah, the good news is, that these hockey organizations, the government, Dr. Tam, the health minister, they all have our health, in mind. They have our best interests in mind at all times. You can see that right here from this headline, or this previous headline from a year ago, saying the Greater Ontario Junior Hockey announces vaccination directive for 2021-2022 season. Isn't that great? The Ontario Junior Hockey League announced Tuesday, this would be a year ago, almost exactly a year ago, that it will require all player access personnel, players, coaches, trainers, team and league staff officials, volunteers, and billet families be fully vaccinated against COVID-19 with vaccines approved for use by Health Canada by the first day of the Greater Ontario Junior Hockey League regular season, which is September 24th. And that was dated exactly 1 year ago, September 1st, 2021. Yeah. Well, captain of junior hockey team in Ayr, Ontario, died suddenly at age 19. Wouldn't want to jump to any conclusions, though. And I don't know what he died from. We don't know. We just don't know. We'll find out eventually. Maybe. I don't know. Will we? Patient confidentiality. These are all issues that we need to be aware of. It just worries me. It really worries me. But isn't it great that they have this new version of the vaccine out? I'm sure it's been tested thoroughly, just like the other ones, right? I'm sure it's been tested extremely well. Clinical trials, I bet they have all the data on it. All the good data to make absolutely 100% sure that they can inject this into people of all ages. All ages. Because we have to brace ourselves for what's coming in the fall. Brace ourselves for what's coming in the fall. And as I say, this is making news across the border. Here it is, CBS. Junior ice hockey player Eli Palferman dies at 20 after collapsing during a game. Well, in the second intermission in the dressing room. CBS News. I just don't know what to say, man. Palferman played 44 games for the Centennials and tallied 16 goals and 13 assists. Team captain. Wow. Wow. Gonna take a break. I'll be right back.
Hello, world. Are you awake? Uniting humankind by liberating millions of minds at a time. Maverick News. The world is watching.
The New World Order. Government overreach. The Great Reset. Mainstream media lies. Now more than ever, independent voices are needed. Donate now at freedomreporters.com. That's freedomreporters.com. Maverick News. The antivirus program for your mind.
I'm back. Last night we spoke about California. They're asking people to not charge their electric cars. And so I was thinking about it a little bit. And then this video was sent to me. So I think I'll share a little bit of this with you, and we can talk about this briefly. There's a lot of other stuff to talk about tonight as well, but just thought we'd touch on this again because I noticed sort of a trend through history with regard to some of this stuff. So let's let this roll.
They are being asked to turn up their thermostats to 78 degrees or higher. They're being asked to avoid using dishwashers and other large appliances and to hold off on charging their electric vehicles. The contrast could not be more clear of how out of touch this legislature has become. We are in a building where we can turn down the thermostat, and we'll ask to turn down the thermostat. And if the power goes out, which it did in the past, there are natural gas generators to back up this building.
This is Marcel with Ernie Racing News. California in the news. California residents are being asked not to charge their electric vehicles to conserve energy amid a brutal heat wave, just days after the state announced a plan to ban sales of new gasoline-powered cars by 2035. Hey, guys. The irony is really unfolding now with a leftist agenda and what is actually happening in our world. So to continue the story, the California Independent System Operator, which runs the state's power grid, issued warnings, multiple bulletins this week. This is a September 1st of extreme heat during the Labor Day weekend that is likely to strain the grid with increased energy demands. So everybody wants to be comfortable with AC and charge their electric vehicles to go out and about. So the grid operator in California asked residents to voluntarily reduce their power consumption by avoiding the use of large appliances, your dishwasher, washer, dryer. And please don't charge your electric vehicles between the peak hours of 4 p.m. to 9 p.m. So you have the California government, the leftist governor. We all need to have electric vehicles. We all need electric vehicles, but we don't have a way to charge your electric vehicles. Sorry, we're not really figuring out the grid. We're going about this backwards. We're going to force you into compliance. And then there's going to be minimal amounts of power, minimal amounts of food. And that way they can control you by feeding you just a little bit that you need to survive.
Why has the Dutch government, a guy called Rutte, the prime minister, completely owned by the World Economic Forum and Klaus Schwab, why has he just announced that the Netherlands, the second biggest exporter of food in the world, is targeting farmers to destroy them and get them off the land, which is where all these farming protests in the Netherlands have come from? At a time of food shortages and supply chain problems, you are targeting the second biggest exporter of food in the bloody world to destroy its farming base. Why are you doing that? If people depend on you for what's left of the food, you control them. Where food is abundant, and cheap, you do not control them. Where energy is cheap and abundant, you do not control them. Scarcity equals dependency equals control. And that's why they're targeting the food chain, they're targeting the energy supply, they're targeting everything.
So let's talk about survival and on the food system and on the electrical grid. And there's a kitty cat coming there. Say hello. What we all really need to survive is we need a strong local food system. And we have my buddy's onions and so forth and so forth. What do we have in here? Some cucumbers. Cucumbers. Oh, yeah. And broccoli. Oh, scrumptious. And melons. Whatever melons these are, I'm not sure. Ooh, these look kind of like little mini watermelons. Oh, here's watermelons. Oh, yeah, and carrots hiding below. You can see the carrot. The world of humanity, for there's a certain section of the population, has just gone stupid.
The president thinks that there is an extremist threat to our democracy. The president has been clear as he can be on that particular piece when we talk about a democracy, when we talk about our freedoms. The way that he sees is the MAGA Republicans are the most energized part of the Republican Party. This is an extreme threat to our democracy, to our freedom, to our rights.
MAGA?
Let's force electric vehicles. Let's force the farmers off their land in the Netherlands so we can take their land and limit everyone's resources and get everybody on the teat of the little government teat where you can just suckle enough milk. We're just getting played, everybody. We're all getting played. Anyways, let's check out some footage.
We have an energy crisis in California. Californians are facing an unreliable electricity grid. Californians are paying for more in energy costs, and they're getting less in power. And while this budget funds the governor's political agenda, that agenda may not keep the lights on. The irony should not be lost on this legislature. Yesterday, this legislative body jammed through a bill to limit much-needed domestic energy production in our state. Today, we are debating a budget that excludes funding for carbon capture technology for oil production and puts more and more restrictions on reliable and affordable energy. And what do Californians have to face heading into this weekend? They are being asked to turn up their thermostats to 78 degrees or higher. They're being asked to avoid using dishwashers and other large appliances and to hold off on charging their electric vehicles. All during the times of 4 to 9. And the contrast could not be more clear of how out of touch this legislature has become. We are in a building where we can turn down the thermostat, and we'll ask to turn down the thermostat. And if the power goes out, which it did in the past, there are natural gas generators to back up this building. But this legislative body is willing to pass a budget and policies that will place more burdens on Californians who are being asked to sacrifice their well-being because of this governor's political desire.
The peak load for electricity is currently projected to exceed 48,000 megawatts on Monday, the highest of the year. So here comes the power grid strain, guys. Just and at the same time, California won't use their own oil and gas industry. It's just like Canada's Trudeau. We have tons of oil and gas that we could be self-sufficient in Canada, but no, we're not allowed to use our own resources and become a self-sustaining country like Russia. Instead, we're reliant on everybody else, and we have to ship in all our food and use oil in different capacities. And so California, the funny thing is California is actually getting power from us, from our hydro grids. Where are we living? What is this planet?
Good question. There's the heat bulletin that went out. Excessive heat starting tomorrow will stress the energy grid. That came out August 30th. Although I have news, for people who think Canada is energy independent. No, it's not. Nope. Should be. In my opinion, Canada, even the US, Canada should not be importing one drop of oil or importing any energy at all. We are energy rich. We've always been a resource based country. Our economy is resource based. That's what the country was built on. Whether it was the fur trade, oil, uranium, nickel, the big nickel in Sudbury, mining, forestry, natural gas. We have an abundance of natural gas. Enough natural gas to last centuries. And it burns clean. But they don't want us to use it. They don't want us to have it. They're looking at banning it. They have a plan to phase it out. I have a friend who works for a natural gas company in Canada. Energy rich. Natural gas rich. They don't want us to have it. So what's the trend that I see? I think back to the 1970s, Jimmy Carter. Pierre Trudeau, for that matter, as well. But I think back to Jimmy Carter in particular. Here's the president in 1977, I believe, when he asks Americans to sacrifice for the sake of greater energy conservation and independence, as he put forth several initiatives to push the nation toward greater energy independence. Let me bring up this little piece of history for you, and then I'm going to show you what Carter's energy policies and economic policies led to. This was 1977 from the Oval Office.
Tonight I want to have an unpleasant talk with you about a problem that's unprecedented in our history. With the exception of preventing war, this is the greatest challenge that our country will face during our lifetime. The energy crisis has not yet overwhelmed us, but it will if we do not act quickly. It's a problem that we will not be able to solve in the next few years, and it's likely to get progressively worse through the rest of this century. We must not be selfish or timid if we hope to have a decent world for our children and our grandchildren. We simply must balance our demand for energy with our rapidly shrinking resources. By acting now, we can control our future instead of letting the future control us. 2 days from now, I will present to the Congress my energy proposals. Its members will be my partners, and they have already given me a great deal of valuable advice. Many of these proposals will be unpopular. Some will cause you to put up with inconveniences and to make sacrifices. The most important thing about these proposals is that the alternative may be a national catastrophe. Further delay can affect our strength and our power as a nation. Our decision about energy will test the character of the American people and the ability of the President and the Congress to govern this nation. This difficult effort will be the moral equivalent of war, except that we will be uniting our efforts to build and not to destroy. Now, I know that some of you may doubt that we face real energy shortages. The 1973 gas lines are gone, and with this springtime weather, our homes are warm again. But our energy problem is worse tonight than it was in 1973 or a few weeks ago in the dead of winter. It's worse because more waste has occurred and more time has passed by without our planning for the future. And it'll get worse every day until we act. The oil and natural gas that we rely on for 75% of our energy are simply running out. In spite of increased effort, domestic production has been dropping steadily at about 6% a year. Imports have doubled in the last 5 years, and our nation's economic and political independence is becoming increasingly vulnerable. Unless profound changes are made to lower oil consumption, we now believe that early in the 1980s, the world will be demanding more oil than it can produce. The world now uses about 60 million barrels of oil a day, and demand increases each year about 5%. This means that just to stay even, we need the production of a new Texas every year, an Alaskan North Slope every 9 months, or a new Saudi Arabia every 3 years. Obviously, this cannot continue. We must look back into history to understand our energy problem. Twice in the last several hundred years, there's been a transition in the way people use energy. The first was about 200 years ago, when we changed away from wood, which had provided about 90% of all fuel, to coal, which was much more efficient. This change became the basis of the Industrial Revolution. The second change took place in this century, with the growing use of oil and natural gas. They were more convenient and cheaper than coal, and the supply seemed to be almost without limit. They made possible the age of automobile and airplane travel. Nearly everyone who is alive today grew up during this period, and we have never known anything different. Because we are now running out of gas and oil, we must prepare quickly for a third change, to strict conservation, and to the renewed use of coal, and to permanent renewable energy sources like solar power.
So Carter was predicting or warning, telling us, as many of his leftist friends did as well, that we were going to run out of oil by the 1980s, that we wouldn't be able to produce in the world enough oil to supply or meet demand. And did that happen? No. They told us back then that was the narrative in the 1970s, that we were running out of oil. We're just going to run out because it came from dinosaurs and we'd burned it all up. And there wasn't going to be any left. Oil shortage, energy crisis. And we didn't run out. And we know as a fact, as a matter of fact, that we have enough natural gas to last well over a century, probably centuries. We could run the country on that without even talking about oil. We can shift away from oil if we want to. And yet the U.S. reached energy independence under Trump by increasing production. Well, 2 years after Carter enacted his policies, we got, well, let me just first bring this up, just to give you a little sense of where things were at back in the 70s. So this from the National Museum of American History, just recalling what happened in the 70s. There was the energy crisis with the oil embargo of 1973. Oil prices in 73 jumped 350%. I remember, even as young as I was back then, I remember exactly what happened. Gasoline at that time in Canada was still priced by the gallon. We had not yet switched over to the metric system. And I recall being in the car with my parents, driving by a gas station. The price of gas, I think at the time, was in Canada around 70, had jumped to 79 cents a gallon, which was a lot at the time. You have to remember that you have to adjust for the value of that day's dollar. And I remember asking my father, what's going to happen to us when gasoline reaches $1 a gallon? Dad, what are we going to do then? Everyone was worried. The world was really changing at that time. And there was a lot of fear being injected into the public through the media. Oil crisis of the 70s. In 1973, Secretary of Commerce Peter Peterson remarked, "The era of low-cost energy is almost dead. Americans paid the price as prosperity came to an end. The oil embargo of 73, 74 and subsequent crises stretched across the decade and had a deep impact on everyday life." It certainly did. Gas lines. Gas stations running out of fuel. Carter, his administration, he asked people to do with less. Talked about conservation. Remember, 55-mile-per-hour speed limit? That's the trend that I see or saw. I noticed starting even back then when I was a kid. It was that whenever you had a socialist or a left-oriented president, Democrat, and I'm not talking about even like a Kennedy type Democrat, I'm talking about a Carter type Democrat. Whenever you get that kind of politician in office, and I'm talking about Canada as well, we had energy problems. We had energy problems under Pierre Trudeau. Big issues, big problems. The solution is always do with less. Lower your expectations. And it's always our fault. The solution is always to do something that actually seems to make things worse through their economic policies, through their energy policies. What have we seen with Biden? What have we seen? Reduced oil production, increasing prices, increasing dependence on foreign energy. People really should be asking themselves why. We have an ocean of oil under our feet, under the crust of the earth, and yet we import it from halfway around the world. Why do we do that? Why does that make any sense at all? I don't understand it. I never have understood it. Unless somebody is benefiting in some way. Anyway, this 2 years after Carter made that speech from the Oval Office, this was the McNeil-Lehrer report from 1979.
Good evening. For millions of Americans, this may be the worst weekend they've ever faced for finding gasoline to give them the automobile freedom they take as their due. Gasoline shortages are spreading across the country. Odd even service, gasoline lines, and closed gas stations are becoming increasingly common. And the news from overseas tonight gives no promise of quick relief. President Carter and other Western leaders agreed in Tokyo to limit oil imports to try to reduce dependence on OPEC, the Organization of Petroleum Exporting Countries. In Geneva yesterday, OPEC slapped another large increase on crude oil prices, an increase the Tokyo summit leaders deplored. In response, President Carter pledged the United States to limit oil imports to 8.5 million barrels a day until 1985. So far this year, imports have been running at 8.2 million barrels a day. So with little hope of greatly increased supplies and much higher prices for what supplies there are, pressure is building again in Washington for a new look at gas rationing. There are reports that President Carter will urge Congress to reconsider the rationing plan they rejected this spring. Tonight, is gas rationing the answer? But first, for those of you who've been spared the experience so far, we want to share the emotions Americans are feeling on the gas lines. Late last week, independent producer Phil Garvin spent a day on a line at a service station in Queens, New York. And this is what happened. As has become common in many states in the East, cars have been lining up before dawn. By the time the pumps opened, many had been waiting 2 and 3 hours for gas.
I've been here since 4:30 this morning. It's ridiculous waiting online here. I couldn't get gas Tuesday. The block was about, the line was about 8 blocks long. It was ridiculous. It was unbelievable waiting online. I can't take it anymore. I've been carpooling. It's my turn to get gas, and thank God I'm able to get gas today. I don't care how much it costs. I just got to get gas. Got to get to work.
People are very desperate. They depend an awful lot upon their cars, and there seems to be no limit to how far they'll go to keep driving that car.
I thought my husband would be able to get gas. He came here at 20 after 5, and he called me at 6 that I should come out and take over because he's got to go to work. And that's what I did. And I'm here where the car is here since 20 after 5. I just can't believe.
Where's your husband?
He's in the synagogue praying for me.
I'm here since 5 in the morning. I spend every day 3 hours on the line. I am always nervous about gas. I can't concentrate on my work. I always have to look at my gas gauge and find out where I can get gas. I went out this morning. We had a lot of work on the radio. People that called for cabs. I couldn't answer the calls. My tank is almost empty. Financially, it absolutely got to a point where it's just impossible to make a living.
My patience is wearing very thin because everybody comes in, all they want to talk about is gasoline. When are you getting a delivery? When can I get the gasoline? Can I leave the car overnight?
My daughter wanted to come here, so she found out there's a gas station open on Main Street, pumping gas at 4 o'clock. So she got online. She was number 33 online, and he was all a hoax. Some guy got in trouble with the car, and he pushed it over to the gas station, and people thought that there's a line waiting for gas, and it was nothing. So they waited 3 hours, and there was no gas. Then I had to come over there and help him push the car away. Life is dull because simply you can't go where you want to go. If I want to go to a show downtown, I can afford it now with the gasoline. It's not a matter of spending money. It's a matter of not getting what you want.
We are only receiving 80% of last year's allocation. We have to limit it to 1,500 per day in order to get through the month. After 2 hours of pumping, that 1,500 gallons is gone. At that time, there is no sense keeping the pumps open because there's nothing left to sell.
It wasn't this bad in World War II when you had to have a stamp to get gas. Why wasn't it as bad as this? Well, you could get it. If you had the ration stamp, you could get the gas.
It's slowing down. We're just about ready to run out of high-test gas. The line is...
So that was 1979. I don't know that anything has improved much. Well, we don't have those lineups, at least not right at the moment. Seems like a big game to me. But we didn't run out of oil. If you go back and look through history, even back to the dawn of the birth of the automobile, at that time, there were predictions of running out of oil even then. All through history, we've had people predicting the end of the earth. The end of days, the sky is falling. Trudeau's National Energy Program, Carter and his conservation programs. What did his programs really do? They limited supply. They limited production. They limited supply. His policies led to runaway inflation. Everything became more expensive. And what did we learn from it? Apparently, nothing. Because people voted for what we're getting right now, which is more of that, only worse, because now we're pushing toward the electrification of the entire automobile fleet in North America, around the world, because it's supposed to be better for the environment, when clearly and demonstrably it's just not true. Well, here, take a look at this. And this is what I've been saying for a long time as well. And not just me, but a lot of people with half a brain. That's what goes into a single battery for an automobile. 30 pounds of lithium. The other night we showed you that a report from the World Economic Forum shows that they know we're going to be running out of lithium even as we start down this road toward the electrification of all vehicles. 60 pounds of cobalt. Mining that stuff is not safe. Children are used. It's open pit mining. That's not good for the environment. Mining the lithium takes huge amounts of water, which becomes contaminated when they mine for it. And again, most of that is done using strip mining methods. Not good for the environment. 130 pounds of nickel, 90 pounds of copper, very expensive. 190 pounds of graphite, and roughly 500 pounds of steel, aluminum, manganese, plastic, and other materials. Yeah. And as I've seen our politicians announcing billions of dollars in grants and subsidies to convert automobile parts facilities to the production of automobile batteries and parts for electric vehicles, and to convert auto assembly plants to produce and assemble electric vehicles, I have not heard them talk at all about programs to recycle those batteries. Which contain toxic chemicals and will pose an extreme hazard to the environment and to human beings and wildlife if they don't find a way to effectively deal with that waste. People can't picture in their minds the huge mounds, the mountains of used up car batteries that we're going to end up with. I was at a recycling yard taking some scrap metal to a recycling facility just a short time ago. And in my community, they were converting all of the homes to smart meters. Each electrical meter in a home is only about, well, maybe that big. Okay? So they took all the old ones off, installed the new ones. All the old ones went to this recycling yard. I went down there and I was going through the yard and I looked up to my left and there was the pile of all the old hydrometers, the electricity meters that used to be on the sides of everyone's home. So in my community, you got about 100,000. And it was massive. It was a mountain. And this is just a small town. They had the contract to recycle those. A mountain of boxes like this big. I thought then, imagine a car battery, which is the size of basically the floor of your vehicle. That's where they put them. And then take 100,000 of those, stack those up. Massive issue. Big, big problems coming, folks. Huge problems. The politicians are virtue signaling, telling us they have the answers so that they get elected, because they're telling some people what they think they want to hear, and it is what people want to hear, because they've been frightened by years, decades of politicians saying we're going to run out of oil, and now it's shifted from we're going to run out to if we continue to burn it, the planet is going to come to an end in 10 to 12 years. Because of climate change. I'm thinking it might be time for a change in direction with our governments. And to do that, we need to get to the ballot box, I guess. And we need to do something about this media, this mainstream media that keeps everyone in a state of fear. That's how they're controlling us. Let's take another break. Enough of that. When we come back, I'm going to talk about moose, because people have been talking to me about him. Don't go away.
Fighting the Great Reset by leading the Great Resistance. Maverick News. The antivirus programs for your mind.
The New World Order. Government overreach. The Great Reset. Mainstream media lies. Now more than ever, independent voices are needed. Donate now at freedomreporters.com. That's freedomreporters.com. Maverick News. The antivirus program for your mind.
Okay, I'm back. Let me see if I can find this video. Again, I'm going to read you an email, just one of them, that I received from a regular viewer. And then I'm going to run the video again of moose. If I can find it. I had it queued up. Where'd you go? Oh, I forgot to talk about the rage index. Let's talk about the rage index first. This is an interesting story. There is a polling firm called Pollara, and they have something called the rage index. And this sort of relates to everything we've been talking about tonight, because they're polling people's anger. Pretty interesting. So the rage index let me just see here. I've got some notes. So the rage index found that prairie provinces are angrier than other jurisdictions in Canada, and that the truckers' convoy and economic news generates more anger than delays at airports and passport offices. And I thought that this information was somewhat revealing. So it says here, we live in a time that many commentators have called an era of outrage, negativity, and anger. No kidding. I wonder how much the internet and mainstream media have to do with that. To study this, Pollara is announcing the launch of the Rage Index, our tracking study measuring the mood of Canadians regarding their governments, the economy, and current events. So they're going to update this every month and track Canadian sentiment on core indicators, as well as topic flashpoints, analyzing mood over time and within key demographic, regional, and political segments. So here it is, everybody, the Rage Index. So this poll was taken between July 25th and August 2nd. And their key findings were that coming out of a multi-year pandemic with soaring inflation, the Ukraine war, they found, get this, here's a revelation, Canadians are in a grumpy mood. Very few are happy with the federal government, provincial governments, the economy, or the types of changes happening in Canada. No kidding. Coverage of world and local events, they say, isn't helping. When Canadians think about stories in the news, 60% feel angry, while only 5% feel happy. I don't know of those 5% why they would feel happy unless they're really into like war and high prices and mandates. So the majority feel angry when they think about the changes happening in Canada and stories in the news, yeah? So the federal government, 16% are very angry. 31% are annoyed or moderately angry. And it's about the same with the provincial government, about the same when they're talking about the economy. The Rage Index, hot, not boiling. The average percentage of Canadians annoyed or angry about the 6 main topics that they touch on here, which is mainly the economy, war, government. 49% are annoyed or angry. 14% are very angry. Those on the prairies are the angriest, with Quebecers the least so. I think that's interesting, especially when you consider that the Premier of Quebec was among the most tyrannical when it came to lockdowns. And he was even talking about penalizing financially Quebecers who refused to get vaccinated. That never happened because there was a real possibility that it would be challenged constitutionally. Frustration with both federal and provincial governments is highest in the prairie provinces. Yep. Well, especially in Alberta, I would say, where the media, even now, still, I think there was one exception. I think there was one newspaper article that has come out talking about Chrystia Freeland's real reason for being in Alberta at the time that she was confronted by Moose, Elliot McDavid. The mainstream media just seems to be ignoring completely, almost completely, her intention, the federal government's intention to expand that caribou reserve by 400%, making it 4 times its current size so that it takes in an area from just south of Grand Prairie all the way to the U.S. border, encompassing 30% of all oil reserves, and putting a blanket of regulation over that entire region that will affect every kind of industry within it: forestry, fishing, mining, farming, and of course, oil production, energy production. You think we're not going to see more lineups at gas pumps, maybe in the near future? They already hammered us once on prices. They went way up. They backed them off a little bit. They're like, it's like boiling a frog in water because the prices still haven't come down to where they were before. They went way up and then backed them back a little bit, and that's where we sit. Men, more angry about government, with women angrier about economic situation. Whatever. Seniors are the least angry about economic situation. That's because I think they maybe don't pay as much attention. And percent who are annoyed or angry, 52, 65% who are very angry, 2019. So about 20% in the 50 to 64 age group are very angry. That's where I'm at. I'm in that age group right there. Anger levels similar across income groups. Yeah, everybody's kind of pissed off. Immigrants are less angry than those born in Canada. You can take from that what you will. I'm not going to dig into that. Oh, and here's the beautiful one, right? PPC and conservative voters are the angriest, and not just about the federal government. Percent who are annoyed or angry about the federal government, 81% to 89%. Percent who are very angry. So if you look at the PPC, yeah, 89% are very, or 46% are very angry with the federal government, and 89% are annoyed or angry at the federal government. Conservatives, 81%. Very angry, 45%. Almost identical. What that tells me is that the party officials, the Conservative Party of Canada, they should take note of that. There isn't really a lot of difference between PPC members and Conservative Party members at the base, at the core, what they believe in, what they think, how they view things, what they believe in. I think the only real difference at the end is sort of what information they're being exposed to, and there's some nuance there. But at the end of the day, they're all very much on a similar page. More than that, I would say that you're finding even a lot of NDP people who have shifted their views, who maybe don't identify as but maybe aren't NDP supporters anymore because they've left the party. Truckers convoyed, and they've gone more over to the conservative side simply because of the civil liberties issues. Truckers convoy and economic news generating more anger than delays at airports and passport offices. Well, what's that a result of? Media coverage. People are being told they should be angry about the trucker convoy. And I'm not sure how the question was asked, so I'm not exactly sure what it means. But depending on how they ask that question, people could be angry because they don't like the trucker convoy, or they could be angry because of the way the government treated the truckers. I'm not sure what the question was exactly, so it's very difficult to know what that means. I'm thinking that they're probably saying that 42% are very angry because they don't like the trucker convoy. And that is the result of media spin, which just shows that this is, again, an information war. So many people still just get their information from the mainstream media. And what we saw in February, March, when the Freedom Convoy was in Ottawa, the media just hammered on it, and they've continued to hammer on it in a negative way. And then we saw what they've done to James Topp and the way that they try to smear him. And the mainstream population, they buy into it because it's like advertising, marketing. They're told what to think. Men more angry about travel delays, while women were angry about truckers' convoy. That's media, man. That's the media. Information warfare. Pretty revealing in a way. Raises a lot of other questions, though, as well. That's the rage index. I think we'll be checking back in on that from time to time. I'll have to study that more and analyze it to see if I can figure out exactly what some of that stuff means. What does it really say about the Canadian people? And I wonder if there's a poll in the US that is similar, that would reveal what's going on on the U.S. side. So what were we going to talk about again? Oh, yes, Moose. Elliot McDavid. So let's just play the video again because I know you guys love it. Of Elliot confronting Chrystia Freeland in Grand Prairie, Alberta. Here's the video of Elliot McDavid again.
Chrystia, yes. What the fuck are you doing in Alberta? You fucking traitorous fucking bitch! Get the fuck out of this province!
You don't belong here.
You're a fucking traitor, you fucking bitch!
So that was the main part of that video where he confronted her. That video went viral. Media lost its mind. And then I said, we here at Maverick News, we're not prepared to throw Elliot McDavid under the bus. Not when you consider what our federal government has done, not when you consider the way truckers were treated, not when you think about the way our federal government, our prime minister, our deputy prime minister, Chrystia Freeland, have refused to listen to the people. I wasn't prepared to do that. I'm still not. I don't really know exactly what Elliot's political views are, but I did receive some emails from people who disagree with my position on this. And some people have commented here, and you guys maybe want to chime in on this when we go to the phones in just a few minutes. But let me read you part of this email. I received several of them from different people. So kind of getting kicked in the teeth on this side too, but that's fine. It says, obviously, he's a liability to the freedom movement. Referring to Moose or Elliot McDavid, and should be treated as such. Appeasement of this man's nonsense, along with all the other brainwashed people, is not the right choice. You didn't call him out. You shouldn't care and shouldn't normalize this guy's, excuse my language, it's not mine, bullshit. What he did was his freedom to do so regarding Freeland, but calling a woman a bitch is just ridiculous. How about make an argument and stand on it? That's how it's done. Not scream retarded names at people and cause more ammunition against the actual freedom movement. Elliot is a moron. So you guys, when we go to the call-in portion of the show, you might have something to say about this. But here's the point that I think is being missed. Elliot McDavid did nothing illegal, in my view. Elliot McDavid, Moose, is frustrated. He's angry because the government isn't listening to the people. In fact, they've gone further than that. They've demonized and dehumanized an entire segment of the population. What they've done is they've been beating people with a kind of a stick, right? And the people they've been targeting are people just like Moose. He's been targeted long before Chrystia Freeland crossed paths with Moose. But they play a game. And we have to stop playing the game by their rules. We have to stop letting these people on the left, these liberals, these liberals supported by the NDP, literally. We have to stop letting them set the rules, make us play by their rules, set the agenda, set the narrative. We're always chasing our tails because of them. We're chasing after them. I don't know if you've noticed this, but they get to lay it all out. They set the table. And then we follow them every single time. And it has to stop, or we're never going to win. And they did it with Moose. And the rules that they lay out for us don't apply to them. And yet we always cave. And that's what's happening with the person who wrote that email. They're caving in, and I don't even think they realize it. I've said many times, don't give them an inch. Now, I'm not saying we should support people who have bad ideas, or we should support people who might lead us astray. I'm not saying we should just get behind anybody for any reason just because they say they're fighting for freedom. But we have to look at every case by case, incident by incident, and look at it for what it really is. And not let these people on the left play their stupid little games and erode what we have built. How did this go down? This incident happened. Chrystia Freeland ran into the elevator. She was smiling, smirking. You know why? She knew. She didn't have to say anything. She didn't have to provide any real kind of rebuttal. She didn't have to talk to Moose. She didn't have to address him at all. Because it's all cliches. It's all about optics. She knew that the media would help her spin it. He was upset with her policies. He's upset with her World Economic Forum board position, with her policies on energy, her policies on the economy, her policies on sovereignty. So she runs to a safe space, makes herself into a victim when in fact she's the one who has all the power. Elliot McDavid, he might be a great big towering guy. His presence might be even overwhelming. He might suck all the oxygen out of the room when he walks in just because he's a big man. But don't kid yourself. Who really had the power there? Who really has the power now? Who always had the power? Who's the most powerful? Chrystia Freeland. She's one of the most powerful people in the world. She is an elite. Went to fine schools, studied overseas, in Ukraine. Lived a life of privilege, real privilege. From politically connected parents on the NDP side. What about somebody like Moose? He's like working class. He's blue collar. Has an auto recycling business, auto parts business, used auto parts. Works hard every day. He's working class, man. He is middle class, maybe lower middle class now because he's been hammered so hard by the federal government. Loves his country, wants to fight back in some way, doesn't know how to do it. The guy's virtually powerless. He might be a big man, but he doesn't have power, not like Chrystia Freeland and Justin Trudeau. They get to make the laws. They make the rules. They make the rules socially and through the media. They control the media. They bought the media that's bought and paid for. Elliot McDavid doesn't have the media on his side. So he gets hammered in the media. They control the cops too. So the cops come down. You've seen how the politicians politicize police. And I'll tell you this, it doesn't matter what happens, what is said, how the media reports it, doesn't matter, because the outcome is a foregone conclusion. All you have to do is look at the headlines. Look at because the point that I'm making here is even conservative politicians like Pierre Poilievre threw Elliot McDavid under the bus. It happens all the time. And now the person who wrote me this email, basically, they're saying somebody like Elliot should apologize, or that we all need to apologize for Elliot by severing ties with him, by turning our backs on him. I'm pretty sure I don't agree with everything that Elliot has to say politically. I think I agree with everything that he has to say on the issues. I'm not so sure that I would agree with him on the approach or the way that I want to find a solution. And that's fine, right? We'll somehow together as a group, as a movement, we'll find solutions. But even if we're not agreeing on the method or the path that we need to take, I could just kind of tell from what he was saying that I probably don't agree with the exact approach that he wants to take. We can have a discussion about that. And, I think as friends with a common goal, we can get to a good place together. But it happens all the time, folks. The media made this, and the politicians made this about etiquette, not about the issues. Nobody's talking about why Moose was upset, or very few people. I've seen a couple of articles kind of in the same vein as what I'm talking about here right now. Why did Moose approach Chrystia Freeland in that way? What's at the core of all that? It's the same thing that has all of us angry. By turning our backs on Moose, when some of our freedom fighters have turned their backs on him the way that the person in this email has, they've left Moose out in the cold. But by so doing, they've shot themselves in the foot, because the media has already smeared all of us. They've lumped us all into this category of hate groups, a hate group. It's a cliche for them. And Moose kind of fits their cliche in a visual way. That's why Chrystia Freeland was smiling. She knew. Big white man, beard, torn wife beater shirt. Perfect. Perfect optics for her. Was it the smartest thing in the world for him to do what he did? Probably not. Would I do it? No. Would I suggest anybody do what he did? No. But he did it. Am I surprised? Nope. Do I blame him? Not really. These are not normal times. Our government is not acting in a normal way. Justin Trudeau gets to dress up and culturally appropriate how many different cultures? He gets to pass on blackface how many times? Chrystia Freeland gets to pose with Nazi flags, Nazi banners, and the media barely bats an eye. They convince us to give them our tax dollars so they can put weapons into the hands of actual Nazis. Are you freaking listening to me? In Ukraine, Nazi battalions. And I've got another story that I think I should be able to get some information onto you for tomorrow about our federal government and its approach to terrorist groups. But these liberals, they just always get a pass. Trudeau gets elected, he flies around the world, hands out millions here and millions there to all these different countries. It's like Christmas. And he uses our money and goes around and hands out money all over the world. Do you think that money is really getting into the hands of people who actually need it? That it's helping people at a real level of need? And all that's kind of people like, oh, well, you know, whatever. Like, you guys, it's just the way it is. In a way, folks, we have nobody to blame but ourselves, collectively, as a community, as a society, as a country, as citizens. Because why? You saw the rage index. Everybody's upset. They're upset with the provincial and federal governments. And yet, what did we do? We turned around and gave Doug Ford in Ontario another majority government. We reelected Trudeau. What did people expect? What would expect would happen? Why is that happening? Because of what's being injected into their skulls through the mainstream media. It's an information war. And because we're letting the politicians buy us with our own damn money, with a false sense of security and safety. And then when things start running off the rails and the government won't listen and everything starts going to hell in a handbasket, and the next thing you know, you've got hockey players who are 20 years old collapsing in dressing rooms. And somebody gets upset because Chrystia Freeland won't listen, so he heckles her. And then conservatives, freedom fighters, who are generally good, kind, decent, level-headed people. Of course, a lot of people go, oh, gee, I'm not comfortable with that. I don't really like it. Yeah, I know, man. I get it. But the people on the other side, look at what they've done. I'm not saying two wrongs make a right, but I'm saying this. Moose might not have been entirely right, might not have been the smartest thing to do, but I don't think he was really wrong either. Oh, let me be perfectly clear. What happened the other day was wrong. Was it? Was it really wrong? Maybe it just wasn't really the right thing to do, but I'm not so sure it was wrong. Certainly not wrong in a legal sense. I think they'd love to charge him and make an example out of him, but at the end of the day, I don't think he broke any laws. And then we see the mayor of Calgary and other left-wing, hard left extremist politicians like the mayor of Calgary saying, well, we need to beef up our laws to take into consideration the way people feel when they're spoken to like that. So then it becomes a question of how people feel based on what you say, or if you shout at them, you get them charged with assault because words become assault. Better be very careful. Stand your frickin' ground, man. That's my message. Don't give them an inch. This is happening again. And they've been very successful. If you look at the headlines, let me just bring some of these headlines up. I'll just type in Freeland. Hang on. Well, let's just see what these headlines are like today. I'm telling you, they're taking advantage of this. Man verbally ambushes Chrysler Freeland. Politicians condemn harassment. RCMP investigating. Politicians condemn. Now, there's one from the Edmonton Sun. Important to understand hostility behind the attack. So I'm not entirely alone on this. Rage, lies, danger. And they are using this to talk about hate and even white supremacy, misogyny. Man verbally ambushes. The thing is, it doesn't matter what we do. They're going to use every opportunity to come after us on the freedom side. This is just one of those reasons. But we need to stop letting them do what they do. We're chasing after them all the time. The solution is stop apologizing. Stop caving in. Now, if Elliot had really assaulted her, if he had done something illegal, then obviously there's no supporting that. Not at all. But he didn't. He didn't break a law. And if these were normal times, I might be a little softer in what I'm saying right now, but nope. What the government has been doing is inexcusable. So, if all they're going to do is be aggressive and push and push and push, if they're prepared to beat people with that metaphorical stick, if they're prepared to let people lose their livelihoods, destroy people's lives, have people lose their jobs, force people to get the thing in the arm against their will, against their wishes, violate people's rights, strip people of their rights, I'm not going to give them an inch. No, when we get back to, I mean, that's what one of those health officials said. You know, we're getting closer to normal. We're not even close to normal. It's still not normal out there. No, when you've got the government funding groups like the Canadian Anti-Hate Network, which is actually the Anti-Canadian Hate Network, using our tax dollars to do that, when you've got the government funding the mainstream media, filling people's heads full of this crap, they're the ones inciting hatred. They're the ones actually encouraging violence. They're the ones who stood back and let churches burn. They're the ones who made sure that the Canadian flag was flown at half-mast for months. And I won't even get into some of the other lies that have been perpetuated using our tax dollars. No. They're not interested in reaching across the aisle. They're not interested in finding common ground. They don't even talk to us. They won't talk to James Topp, let alone Elliot McDavid. And as long as we continue to bend the knee, because we buy into what sometimes the mainstream media is feeding us, and I see it happen all the time, even within our group, our movement, the freedom movement, as long as we sometimes bend the knee and cave in and apologize when we really don't need to, we'll continue to lose ground. There's no more ground to give. And this is one of those moments. You think we should turn our backs on Elliot McDavid? Then I guess you're probably okay with Tamara Litch going to jail or Pat King being held as political prisoners and being put through a ringer in the courts, through the court system, on charges of mischief. Because those are the tactics they use, and as they freeze people's bank accounts and violate our property rights and our rights to free speech, as they prepare more censorship laws that are coming very soon. And you better ask yourself, why? Why do they want these censorship laws? I was thinking about that more today. It's because they've been up to no good. They've got a lot to hide. They've been doing very, very naughty things, immoral things, possibly illegal things. And they don't want people to know. So they need to shut anyone that might oppose them or expose them up. Elliot McDavid is just a pawn to them, an opportunity. But it's up to us to deny them that opportunity. All you have to do is say, no, I'm not going to turn my back on this man. Go find somebody else to pick on. Find somebody your own size to pick on, Chrystia Freeland. I'll be right back.
Maverick News. Fighting for freedom.
The New World Order. Government overreach. The Great Reset. Mainstream media lies. Now more than ever, independent voices are needed. Donate now at freedomreporters.com. That's freedomreporters.com. Maverick News. The antivirus program for your mind.
Fighting the Great Reset. By leading the Great Resistance. Maverick News. The antivirus programs for your mind.
Okay, I'm back. The phone lines are open. I'm going to run the promo so that you know what phone number to call, and you can join the conversation here tonight on the Maverick News Channel.
Join the conversation. Call 1-833-975-3733. That's 1-833-975. Free. Speak up. Speak out. Make your voice heard. Maverick News. Fighting for freedom by defending your right to free speech. Be a Maverick. Join us.
Okay, so we're back, and yes, you can join the conversation here at 1-833-975-3733, 1-833-975-3733. Let's go to our first caller. Let's see who we have here. I believe it is Sue. Hello, Sue. How are you tonight? Are you there?
I'm good. How are you?
I'm okay.
You sound okay.
Yeah, I'm all right.
Hey, did you hear what's going to be going on in Ottawa?
When? I'm not sure.
Apparently, the mayor and whatever city council voted in July that there will be wind turbines in Ottawa, solar panels in Ottawa. There will be no gas cars allowed in Ottawa. And they're going to be charging people to go to Ottawa. It's on the municipal website.
I'm not familiar with all of that.
I heard about it today by a radio group that's out of Ottawa that does live streams.
Okay.
And they come out with that, and I was like, what? And he said, yes, they voted back in July in favor of it. And it's on their website. And I wrote the website down just in case you're curious.
Sure. Go ahead. Just give it to me and I'll
It's
type it in.
it's icsc-canada.com. And it's all there. Everything that they voted on.
So here's the report on Ottawa's climate change master plan. Okay.
Yeah.
I'll bring it up. Let's take a look. Interesting. If what you're telling me is true, I would not be a bit surprised. We're seeing a lot of crazy things. Report on the City of Ottawa's climate change master plan, a cautionary tale for governments around the world. The City of Ottawa's climate change master plan, infeasible and damaging to Ottawans, the environment, and human rights. Here's a PDF. City of Ottawa's climate change master plan. Well, this is pretty extensive. The forecast cost of achieving the city's net zero greenhouse gas emissions by 2050 target is an astonishing $57.4 billion to be spent over the 3 decades between 2020 and 2050, with a present value of $31.8 billion. And that's the estimated direct cost. The actual cost would be much higher. Well, I do find this stuff interesting. I think these people are insane. You're seeing. Well, we've seen similar things out in places like Victoria and Vancouver. So they're not alone in this. There are other municipalities pushing similar things. So this is not the municipality's website. This is a different group trying to expose this information is what this is. Yeah. Yeah, they want to reduce greenhouse gas emissions in the community by 43% by 2025. That's only, well, that's less than 3 years away. So they want to almost cut greenhouse gas emissions almost in half within the next 3 years. Do you really think they can do that? No freaking way. 68% by 2030. That first jump right there, that's impossible. They'll never do that. Yeah. Mm-hmm. Some people did until the media told them they weren't supposed to want them there. Yep. Yeah. Yep. They've hammered people too much. Like, I honestly have no sympathy for Chrystia Freeland. Oh, you hurt my feelings. Yeah. No, he didn't. She laughed at him. You saw her smirking in the elevator. She thought, I'm going to use this. That's what she was thinking. She wasn't afraid. Yep. Yeah, she is, isn't she? Yes. Yep. Mm-hmm. Oh my God. That's no way to treat people. You see, there you go. Like, that's a perfect example, right? All of that yeah, yeah. You don't treat people like that. You just don't do that. But our government is doing it and encouraging it. So I have no sympathy for Chrystia Freeland. No. Yeah. Yeah, me either. Not really. I mean, I'd like to have him on the show and question him about a bunch of things and or maybe just meet him in person at some point and have a good conversation with him. I'd like to believe him. I'd like to believe all the things that he says because I love what he says. But as you know, like so many people just don't feel they can trust him. Yeah. Yeah. Well, I haven't had any of them. Not me. I'm not taking any of them. I haven't taken even the first one. As soon as that they started talking, no. Yeah. Oh, this one's going to be really good. You need to get an extra one of these. The new version's super duper. 8 mice. Is that right? Like they must on mice, I believe that. Yeah, but has yeah, well they haven't had time to do human trials. Right? Just roll this one out. We didn't get them all with the first one. Better take another shot at it. Yeah. Yep. And I mean, in fairness, they haven't said what he died from. So, but I mean, hey, come on. But we have to always sit back and say, you know, I mean, I don't know what else it would be. I just don't know what else it could be. But too much, too many people just dying now like that. Yep. Oh yeah. 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 I just don't know. Yeah, they want to vaccinate all the kids, don't they? Yes, they do, in the worst way. Well, listen, Sue, I'm going to move on because we've got some other people in the queue here. But yeah, I will do that. Yeah, because that's extremely important stuff. It shows that even these things can be promoted, pushed at the local level, municipal level. And we are seeing it not just in Ottawa. I know that, especially in British Columbia, there are municipalities doing precisely the same thing, taking exactly the same approach. And it scares the living daylights out of me because I think it's all insane. It's not viable. It can't work, and people will suffer if they try to implement while they're trying to. And we're already suffering. It's going to get a lot worse if they proceed with this stuff. So, yeah. 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 Yep. Yeah. Mm-hmm. Yeah. See, I'm getting some information here from Gina. He's sending me some information about online hate. It looks like exactly what I've been saying is already coming to the forefront here. Let me move on, Sue. I'm going to pull this up for people to see on the screen for a moment before we move on to our next call, because I think this is important. Okay, thank you. Oh, they can't hear you talking? Oh. Oh, let me just see if I can fix that. Oh, well, we lost your screen. That's why. That's why. They would be able to hear you now.
But anyway.
Well, let's bring you back up.
Okay.
That's why. You know why? Because I brought that slide up.
Page up.
The way the system works, and I should have known better. See, if I bring up a slide, you go off the screen, and then your audio doesn't feed through. So I'm really sorry.
Oh,
about that,
okay.
folks. So you go ahead for a minute longer.
Okay. No, I just want to send out big hugs to that family that lost their son and all the children.
Yeah.
Like, God damn.
Yeah.
But
yeah. And you said that you support Mr. McDavid. And what else did you say that people missed? You said
I don't know. I said so much.
Well, about all the stuff in Ottawa, how we're both in agreement.
How they're putting up wind turbines and solar panels and want to charge people $20 to get in Ottawa. Even if you live out of Ottawa and you come back in, they want to charge you $20.
Yeah.
But
yeah.
But no, I'll let you move on because I know Gina sent you or something.
Yeah. So actually, this one here, I'm just taking a look here. The one thing she sent me is actually old, from back in June, but still relevant.
But no, there's a lot of stuff going on under the skirts that people don't know about.
Yes.
A lot. And I just happened upon this today, and the old guy on there, Lowell Green is his name.
Who is it? Yeah.
Lowell Green,
okay.
Lowell, Green.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, he was pissed. I guess he read it to his wife, and she thought he was nuts.
Yeah.
But he's not nuts.
None of us are nuts. That's the thing. Like, I wouldn't say everybody here gets everything right all the time.
No.
Because sometimes we mix up our U.S. and Canadian law, and get some other stuff mixed in there with it. And sometimes people get a little confused about a few things, which is totally understandable because we're exposed to so much US information and just other factors.
Yeah.
But overall, you know,
Yeah, it's going on everywhere.
Yes. Yeah.
Everywhere.
Yeah.
It's just horrible.
Yeah. Yeah. These things that Gina sent, they're actually from months ago, but they're still very relevant here. And, you know, the headlines are things like liberals to reintroduce anti-hate bill as soon as possible. That was back in February.
Well,
But
the
that
next bill to come across is the 11.
Yep, that's right.
Anytime this month, apparently.
Yep, that's right. So, I mean, they have accelerated all of that. They talk about some of these online live streams and groups as being accelerationist hate groups. They're the ones accelerating everything. They've got their foot to the floor, and nobody's more hateful than these left-wing extremist liberal NDP whack jobs.
Progressive, conservative, green. I don't trust any of them.
No, me
None
either.
of them.
Nope. They're all in it together. They're all in it
I
together.
don't even trust mine here and where I live. I don't trust her at all.
Yeah. Okay, we better move on. Better grab up.
All right. Well, you have a good night.
Okay, thank
and
you.
And hi,
Sue.
Lori. I see you on chat.
Okay, here we go.
All right.
See you later.
Bye.
We have John up next. How are you, John?
Good evening. How you doing, Rick?
I'm okay, sir. How are you?
So I'm a little disappointed seeing the health industry coming on today. I didn't see Christine Elliott or Justin Trudeau as part of that gang today, right? So they're just bringing the policies out about the new variant and, you know, kids from 6 months to 5 years can get this. And it's ludicrous what they're doing. It doesn't even make any sense. And they're saying that they're not forcing this jabba jabba, I will call it, on people. That's exactly what they're doing.
Yeah.
That's exactly what they're doing. They're forcing it. They're not, you know, and they say it's the new variant. How can there be a new variant to the old variant? And they know that some of the people are getting sick from it, but they're coming up with a new variant. How can they come up with a new variant? Like within, like, I don't know, like, can you explain? I don't know. Can you explain this new variant? And they've only tested it on a few rats or mice or something.
Oh, you mean the new vaccine, if you want to call it that? Yeah.
The brand new one.
Yeah, the brand new one. Yeah.
Yeah.
Well,
and
that's the thing, right?
It doesn't make it. Yeah, it doesn't make any sense, Rick. And look, do people do not understand something? I think there is a lot of people still don't understand. Christopher Freeland is WEF. So is Justin Trudeau. WEF. And they're leading us down this path to the WEF. They're spending our money like crazy. They're out in Alberta. I know for sure. I'll just call him Moose because I respect the man. Maybe he didn't use the nicest words. I will agree with that.
Yep.
But we're all frustrated.
Yep.
We're all frustrated what this government is leading us down the path. And they think that we're all stupid. Now she was out there because of that, she wanted to surround that, the caribou land, right? Okay.
Yep.
And she wants to extend it out around it so they can cover up those oil patches, so they can't get the oil out.
That's right.
And it's crazy I think that if they had an alternative, just not wind and solar, I'd be right behind it, but they don't have it.
Exactly.
All they have is wind and solar.
Yeah.
So I don't know what your ideas on that, Ed. And I'm another thing before I leave. These what do you call it? These elections that we're having.
Mm-hmm.
There is no way mathematically that these numbers can be coming out almost the same. It's not possible. With 40, you only had 31%, but you got a majority of government. How is that possible?
You mean
Isn't he flipping the numbers? How are they doing this?
You mean he got 31% of the popular vote? You mean?
Yeah. Well, I think there was only 31. Was there only 31% that voted?
Oh, okay.
Well, yeah, and he got a majority out of that.
Yeah.
How's that possible?
Well, because of the way the system works, it's a parliamentary system. It depends on how.
I know.
A majority just means. I think you understand what I mean, right?
No. I understand what you mean.
Yeah.
But the thing is they're using those machines, and they're saying the same kind of machine that they're using, the Dominion machine,
yeah,
and the other one. Okay, so they're using those in the provincial government. I'm thinking somehow they're flipping those numbers.
Well, okay. First of all,
why not?
First of all,
yeah,
we can't talk about that on YouTube.
Oh yeah, well
and also just to make you aware that there's a multi-billion-dollar lawsuit underway right now. Sean Hannity is actually mentioned specifically in it against Fox News. And so if you would like me to face a multi-billion-dollar lawsuit, just keep talking.
No, I don't.
Okay.
But I didn't realize, I don't, I'm not, when I watch a show, I watch it on Rumble.
Yeah.
So I apologize for that.
That's okay.
I'll take everything I said there, I'll take back.
Okay. I totally get what you're saying.
Yeah. We shouldn't be. And we're all frustrated.
Mm-hmm.
We're all frustrated. And then they're bringing down the mandates again. They say they're not. But what the health and Teresa Tam, you never ever see her. You never hear about her. She's only on there when there's a big announcement. And she just got a 30% raise. She got a 30% raise.
They've all profited in one way or another because they've billed the taxpayers for a lot of overtime.
Oh, yeah.
The medical officers of health, just even at the local levels, most of them made enough to buy a new house in over the course of just over a year.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And I do
all of them.
agree that we should be letting the courts settle this. There is some likely good court cases that are coming up with Maxime Bernier and Mr. Peckford.
Yep.
And so we'll see how that goes. I don't know how it's going to go. Are they going to try to keep it out of the courts?
Yeah. Well.
But anyways, I really love you on Rumble.
Yeah.
That's part of you.
Well,
so
appreciate
it.
Please
keep coming out from there, please.
Yeah, well, we'll continue to broadcast over on Rumble for sure. And the subscriptions are growing there, but we just don't have anywhere near on Rumble what we have on YouTube and Facebook. So we just have to stay on those platforms as well. We just have huge audiences there and just people stay there. And I know why. It's the technology. There are a variety of reasons why. Just that's it. But
yeah. Have you thought about Gab at all, Rick?
Yeah, I was looking at that again today. I do post on there. We don't have our own channel. They have a payment system issue because they've been hammered so much with censorship and cancel culture. that it's hard for a Canadian to actually pay them. There's only really one method to pay them. I can't send them a check. I can't use a credit card. I can't use Gab Pay. You can only use like this payment system that they have.
Is that because of our Canadian government?
No, it's because they've been hammered. They had their credit card system taken away. You know, the government there is in a way declared war on them. The left wing political establishment has declared war on them, and they have all the social media, the most of the payment system providers against them. It's cancel culture on overdrive over there, man. So when it just makes it difficult to pay. So they just within the last, I think, month, finally were able to start accepting credit cards again, but not yet from Canadians. I looked at it again today. So I can't even pay by Bitcoin. I could pay by Bitcoin, but even then I can't. And that's partly because of regulatory issues in Canada as well. And I was using Binance for cryptocurrencies. The Ontario government shut that all down. The Canadian government is pretty restrictive, but Gab, there's a organization that really fights, and they are also very unjustly smeared for being something they're really not.
Yeah, I do have an account over there.
Yeah.
And I have a group that follows me, so on that. So that's great. But Rick, I'll let you move on. Thank you very much for everything you do. Keep posting on Rumble. That's where I like you, right there.
Thank you, sir. We'll chat again.
Okay, thank you. Bye-bye now.
Take care. And we have Pam on the line. Thank you for waiting so long, Pam. I know you've been on there for a while.
Oh, that's okay. I love listening to your show. I really loved having that lawyer, Christensen, Catherine Christensen, being in the ex-former military myself. I could really identify with what she was saying. Anyways, I just wanted to say about when Christia was in Alberta and Moose went up in his muscle shirt. That would have, it almost seemed intimidating because it almost, to me, what I thought, I thought this has got to be staged, you know, but I think it was kind of probably organic. And, you know, I was thinking about, you know, a lot of people equate those kind of shirts with the wife beater shirts, but I do genealogy from when I studied her family and the things that they did. It is, you know, they dress really well. So did the Nazi soldiers during the Second World War. And her great-grandfather on her mother's side is, his name was changed to become anglicized, Michael Tomiak, but it was Mikhailo Chanjak, and he was the editor of the Krakow News during occupied Poland. And they came to Canada under sort of a persecuted status of being persecuted. But he was actually the chief editor of that newspaper, and it was taken away from the owner, who was sent to Auschwitz. And you can find pictures of him. You know, you might want to do a show on that because it's all on the internet. So you just got to look it up. And it's in Ancestry as well.
It isn't even the family history that concerns me as much as seeing her in a photograph holding a Nazi banner. It's the,
you got it.
It's her actions that concern me the most. It's her.
Yeah, exactly.
Rabid.
I mean, we're being bamboozled by a guy in a muscle shirt who, you know, gave verbal abuse. I mean, I tried to call the police once. Somebody gave me verbal abuse, and they couldn't do a darn thing about it. Yeah. And it was just verbal abuse, you know. But because she's a politician, she's going to get extra privileges.
Right. That's exactly right. As a journalist, I've faced much worse, far worse than that. I've had my life, like literally, I've been in real physical danger, possibly like life-threatening situations in the past. Way worse than that, man.
Yeah, I had a couple of threats too when I was a journalist. So, and I moved right out of there, of where I was living, because it was too much of an isolated area.
Well, I don't really want to make it about me, but I could tell you some real stories about some incidents that make that look like nothing, because that really was, in a way, nothing. It's just optics, right?
Yeah. Yeah. But I think if he wants to go, I mean, his heart's in the right place. If Moose wants to take it, you know, I would just say control the anger, and just say what you have to say, but try not to use the swearing, because that's, you know, definitely, I mean, you know, mild swearing, yeah, but when you target someone like that with swear words, that does not look good. And it does set people up on the defense, because then they perceive that person as being a bully. You know, you can't really do much about bullies unless they're in the workplace that you're working in.
Yeah. I mean, look, the media took it. They're running with it. The politicians are running with it. They're using it to spin up this, you know, again, the narrative of, oh, women are so vulnerable. Women journalists are under increasing attack, and women politicians are, you know, being targeted, and we need to increase security. And then now we're going to ramp up the censorship, and they're using this as an excuse to push their agenda. But that's why we can't let them continue to play this game where they take an incident like this, and then we bend the knee and go, oh, gee, yeah, I guess you shouldn't have done that. Because as soon as we do that, it's the same as us saying, yeah, gee, I guess you guys are right. Go ahead, pass that new law. Go ahead with your censorship bill. Yeah, we need more money for these, you know, anti-hate programs. We need more money for the, you know, as soon as you do that, it's like you've just laid down, and now you're going to let them run right over you.
Exactly. Well, what did you think of Pierre? Here I go again with saying the name wrong. Poilievre. Oh, I can't hear you. What did you think of Pierre coming to Nanaimo and I think it was Sydney on Vancouver Island, and he had the whole crowd roaring. He said, and we're going to get, you know, he's not going to let anybody in his cabinet belong to the WEF. Did you see that?
Yeah.
What did you think? I mean, the whole crowd just stood up.
You either believe him or you don't.
Yeah, I know.
In fairness, I have not seen him on the WEF website. I've seen a website where snapped and screenshots of it but it's not the WEF website. It's a website that talks about people being on the WEF website, and they list him as having been on it but taken off. But that's not the WEF website. I have not seen any evidence to support the assertion that he was or ever was a member of the WEF. He says he wasn't. He says he wouldn't allow anyone in his cabinet to be part of the WEF. So until I see some proof one way or another, but how do you, let's say he's telling the truth and he has not been a member of the WEF. How do you prove that you weren't when you never were?
I know, exactly.
Right? So the onus really has to be on someone to prove that he was. Because if we believe in due process and innocence until proven guilty, then we have to give him that. But at the same time, he's a politician. And for that reason, I don't entirely trust him. But I'd like to be able to.
I would like to be able to too.
The reason I don't entirely trust him is because of some of the things that he still says, where he comes out and he supports what's going on in Ukraine, where where was he at the beginning of this pandemic on these issues? Maxime Bernier has been consistent. Has Pierre Poilievre been consistent? Yeah. Not really. When did Pierre Poilievre start throwing the word freedom around? Well, he was sort of using it when the truckers were on their way to Ottawa. And, he's really warmed up to it. Now he's hammering hard on it because he's scoring a lot of points on it. But he's really kind of stolen the platform from Maxime Bernier and the PPC in many respects. So
I know. I wish Pierre Bernier would do more seminars or rallies, because he really has been consistent. He's the only one that I've seen that has been consistent. And also with Pierre, what he did was, I believe he didn't stand up against the censorship bill. I don't know if I'm 100% right on that one, but I remember someone showing a video on that and the results of when they were voting in these censorship bills. And he wasn't fully against it, and what he did with when Chrystia was verbally assaulted the other day, maybe they just showed a brief clip of him, but I think he reacted too quickly. He would have been much smarter to, in my opinion, to have said, well, there's a lot of frustration in this country. I'm not excusing it, but there's a lot of frustration in this country right now. And that's all he needed to say.
Yeah. Yeah, I agree. But he said what I think Pierre Poilievre, being the polished politician that he is, he's pragmatic. He assesses the situation. He is careful about what he says, because he knows that if he says this, he'll alienate that many people. And if he says that, he'll alienate that many people. So he tries to figure out what he needs to say, what he needs to do to get himself into office. I don't really blame him entirely for doing it. Every politician, to some degree, does that. Some of them to a great degree. So you never really know what you're going to get until you've got it.
I know. And I mean, I have to say, I'm a woman, and if a guy came up and talked to me like that, I would go, holy cow, like I'd be kind of fearing him, especially if he's like way bigger than me.
Yeah.
But when you got an entourage of guards around you like she did, and people around you, well, there's really nothing to fear. I mean, he obviously wasn't carrying any weapons or anything.
Mm-hmm.
And so, I mean, he was, in my opinion, he was quite aggressive in how he said things, but, he is reflecting the frustrations of how a lot of people and how people handle those frustrations are all different. And then again, it goes back to the divide and conquer. And that's exactly what the Liberal Party is trying to do in Canada right now.
Yeah. Yep. Well, that's but
it's an old playbook.
It is, and we have to stop letting them make all the rules and make us play by their rules. And they set the agenda, they set the news cycle, they pick the issues, they set the tone, and they've done it here again. They used this.
I know, and
Trudeau stands up and says, it calls on all politicians to condemn this act. And then if you don't condemn it, then you're a misogynist yourself. So then the media runs off to get reaction to the prime minister calling on all politicians to condemn Moose. And then they run off and they get Pierre in a corner. And the media asks Pierre, what do you think of this? What do you think what's your position on this, Pierre? And then Pierre stands there and he kind of takes a look at it and he figures out what he has to say so that he doesn't get hit too hard in the media. And he says what he says and he bends the knee. And then they say, yeah, see, so now even the Conservatives, we're all on side. Everybody agrees with us. So that's why we have to pass Bill C-11. And there's going to be more censorship online. And we're going to throw anybody that says anything hateful in jail.
Mm-hmm.
Well, we got to stop doing that, because we need to start looking down the road and saying, wait a minute, if we just cave in on this and we just bend the knee, or we don't say it and just, if we just say, okay, you're right, then we're going to get to a bad place.
When I was young and in the military, I served with NATO overseas, and on a holiday, we went to this concentration camp called Dachau. And I mentioned this once before. It's where they first took in all the reporters and all the politicians that didn't agree with them, and they exterminated them. Then they built Auschwitz and a bunch of other camps, but that was their very first camp. And they, for the first 3 years, that camp was used to do nothing but to kill people who didn't agree with the party. And it was horrible. Even the birds wouldn't fly over it. So then while I was there, they had on the tour that I was on, I met this fellow, and he was actually the mayor of Dachau. And I said, how did this happen? How did you guys allow this to happen? And he just quietly said, if we did anything about it, we would have ended up in here too.
Mm-hmm.
So this is kind of on the precipice that we're on right now with censorship. And it's just inch by inch, a little bit at a time. And that's how abuse works. And grooming people to believe a certain set of ways, bit by bit by bit. And then when they start to wake up and they realize, then it's all gone too far. And a lot of people die.
Yep.
And people need to really pay attention to this. And if they don't, if there's any trolls listening, just go look up books on Dachau. Go look it up. Watch, I think, Kevin Branahoff's Final Solution. That stuff was real. It all happened. It's not a fairy tale. But so many people have never learned that in history in school. And I was lucky enough to have some really good teachers when I went to school. And it was a public school. But I had people who really understood history and taught it well, and made you look and think objectively. And they always used to divide the class, and they'd say, okay, we want you to debate this. And so the one debate was, there is a God. The other one side said, no, there isn't. And then another debate was on abortion. And so we had to change sides over each time. So you had to fight to win for your side. And so that taught us to become objective and to look at things with an open mind, and a rational and logical mind, and use critical thinking skills. Well, that's not being taught in schools anymore. They just want you to think a certain way, and that's it.
Yeah.
You know, so anyways, I won't keep you, but I love your show. You're doing a great job.
Well, thank you. I appreciate that, Pam.
Absolutely. Absolutely wonderful. All right. You take care.
Okay.
Okay. Bye-bye.
Bye for now.
Bye-bye.
Well, folks, it is now 9:20 p.m. And the reason I got into journalism, one of the main reasons, is I believe in freedom of speech. I always saw journalism, the news business, but journalism in a larger sense, as being foundational to a democracy, to a free country. That's why I got into it. Every day that I worked as a journalist, I felt I was contributing to that ideal, to that goal. And that's why I continue to do what I'm doing right now. I want to preserve what's left of freedom of speech, freedom for the media, because without free speech, you don't have any freedom at all. It really begins with free speech. They get that. They get it all. And we're not far away from it. Maybe weeks. And if they get that, I don't know what's going to happen here. they're coming after us. And I expect they're probably coming after me. And everybody like me. So, bring it on, I guess. What else can we do? I'm not giving up. But for tonight, we are going to call it a night. I'm going to rest. I've got a little more work to do. And then I'm going to rest. And then I'm going to come back. And I'm going to be here again tomorrow. I'm digging into another story that I think it's important and possibly going to shock some people. But maybe among our family, it won't shock that many because we've seen what this government is capable of and what they are willing to do and how deceptive they are. In any event, if you can support the work that we're doing here, please donate at freedomreporters.com. We need to find a way to ramp this up here a bit in the face of all this, and keep some people around here if we can. So that's where you can support the channel. You can also support us by liking, sharing, subscribing. If you haven't liked tonight's live stream or video, please consider hitting the like button. That also helps us a great deal. Please consider subscribing over on Rumble. That would help us a great deal. It doesn't cost you anything. You just go over and just subscribe to the channel. Just go over and make a Rumble account. It's free just to watch and subscribe, just like on YouTube. And then our subscription numbers go up, and liking, sharing, subscribing, that amplifies the voice. Not just my voice, everyone's voice here. It gives us all more strength. And freedomreporters.com is where you can donate. That URL takes you directly to the page. And that, for tonight, folks, is a wrap. I'm Rick Walker. You've been watching the Maverick News Channel. Thank you, Maverick family, for watching. We will be back tomorrow night, 6 p.m. Eastern Standard Time. Same bat time. Same bat station. Mañana.
This has been a Maverick Multimedia production.